France now stands as one of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations, while it used to once on the brink of destruction. Are you curious how? In this video, we will answer your question by not only talking about French's rich and complex history, which evolved dramatically since its tumultuous days of World War II, but also the romantic allure associated with France, pondering whether it truly lives up to its reputation. Is it the French or the Italians who hold the title of the most romantic? If you delve into the history of France, you'll see that Italy cannot truly compare. France is a cultural hub of Europe. To understand Western culture, visiting France is sufficient. This cultural richness is why the French often prefer not to speak English. They are not taking British culture as their standard. In their eyes, Britain is just a nouveau riche. It's like in Asia, one day Korean and Japanese become the world's dominant languages. Do you think Chinese could look up to them? Exaggerating a bit, it's like saying, nowadays we understand all Western cultures and universal values like freedom, equality, and human rights actually originate from France. And the source of all this comes from the Great French Revolution more than 200 years ago. Why is this called the Great Revolution? Because that revolution spanned the past 2 centuries and included numerous small coups and 8 major regime changes, had a massive impact, sparking a wave of revolutionary across Europe. Today, let's talk about the French, who has romantic but painful love and not so fond of potatoes. Before Christ, France was part of Roman territory and was called as Gaul at first. In their period of development, many French kings developed the particular hobby for cockfighting. Therefore, France also has a nickname called the Gallic Rooster. The Romans dominated them until 396 BC, when the Roman Empire was divided into Eastern Rome and Western Rome. Eastern Rome continued to exist until the 15th century, but Western Rome was less fortunate, being annexed by surrounding barbarians in less than 100 years. That's quite interesting. At that time, there was a hierarchy of disdain. The Greeks considered the Romans as barbarians, and the Romans viewed the Germanic tribes as barbarians. In the end, all these people were defeated by those they considered barbarians. In 800 AD, a strong Frankish leader emerged, Emperor Charlemagne. During his reign, he attacked the Germans, defeated the Spanish, and subdued the Italians, bringing the territory of the Western Roman Empire under his control, also considered as Frankish Empire. He declared himself the Emperor of the Romans, even though Eastern Rome still had been there at that time. Frankish power reached its fullest extent under Charlemagne. Despite Charlemagne's dominance, Eastern Rome still existed, despite less glory and power. After the death of Emperor Charlemagne, his empire was passed on to his son, Louis. In the era of Louis initially, Emperor Louis planned to crown his eldest son as his successor, but secretly changed his mind and crowned his younger son instead. This decision sparked conflict between the 2 sons, leading to division and discord among them. This struggle continued until the year 843, when an agreement was finally reached, known as the Treaty of Verdun. This treaty divided the Frankish Empire into 3 parts. This division laid the foundations for the future kingdoms of France and Germany, as well as other territories. The younger son of the Louis was called Charles, later known as Charles the Bald, Charles II, by the next generation. He received the western portion of the empire, which roughly corresponds to modern-day France. Charles became the king of West Francia. His kingdom included territories such as Neustria, Aquitaine, and parts of Burgundy. In contrast, the eldest son Louis the German, Louis II, received the eastern portion of the empire, which included what would become Germany. Louis became the king of East Francia. His kingdom included territories such as Bavaria, Saxony, and Franconia. Another son named Lothaire received the central portion of the empire, which included the territories between the kingdoms of Charles and Louis. His kingdom was known as Middle Francia, and included areas such as Italy, Burgundy, and the Low Countries. During the period of Charles the Bald, France was miserable, harassed by Viking pirates, and the France Emperor endured unbearable torture, leading to compromises, and the map was redrawn. The Duke of Normandy was the leader of the coup. At that time, England did not have a clear heir to the throne, so the Duke of Normandy seized the opportunity and crossed into England to claim the throne. Despite having only a few thousand men under his command, each was brave and talented. As a result, he became a king of the England. The strength of England was not comparable to France. However, the English king was once a French duke, and his fief naturally became English territory. At that time, English knights were divided into classes: duke, marquis, count, viscount, and baron, each with their own domain. Although he was the Duke of Normandy, he was theoretically still a subject of France. These French dukes and marquis become excited, and they all frantically ran to become kings of England. This recurring situation led to numerous Frenchmen becoming kings of England, each bringing pieces of land with them, causing France to lose territory steadily. The French king was furious and aimed to reclaim these lands. Finally, he waited for an opportunity. In the 12th century, during the Third Crusade in Europe, England, France, and Austria formed an alliance to attack the Arab Empire. However, the French didn't focus on the fighting skills. Instead, they planted spies while the English were away. And finally, the French took back the fiefs that the English had taken. All the kingdoms were restored. So the seeds of conflict between England and France had been sown. By the 15th century, times have changed. The King of France passed away, and Edward III of England, considered the grandson of the then King of France. So, without doing anything, he could directly inherit the throne and become the King of France. At this time, another figure named Philip VI, the cousin of the French king, emerged. The grandson and the cousin of the king started to fight. His led to a conflict between England and French, starting the 100 Years' War between these two countries. Initially, Edward III was aggressive, defeating the French repeatedly and capturing significant French territory, causing France to teeter on the brink of collapse. But Joan of Arc then appeared, claiming divine guidance of God to save France. But the king did not believe it. Despite initial skepticism, her persistence convinced the French prince to let her lead. She remarkably turned the tide, delivering crucial victories against the English and restoring French strength. Joan's military successes were significant, but later, to protect him, Prince Charlie ascended the throne. She was accidentally captured by the English and taken as a prisoner and executed at 19. Her legacy and the support of the French monarchy and the Church inspired continued French resistance, ultimately leading to their victory in the 100 Years' War. Despite this victory, the post-war turmoil between England and France persisted. France regained all the territories lost to England, reasserting its dominance. France suddenly became powerful and began to focus on its neighboring countries, launching various attacks. However, the French people remained unconcerned with provincial matters until the establishment of the Bourbon dynasty, which marked a period of recovery and consolidation under King Henry IV. His son, Louis XIII, continued this trend. Henry IV's son is known as Louis XIII. This name puzzled me at first, but I later understood that it was because he was the 13th king named Louis, following 12 previous rulers with the same name. During his reign, a famous figure named Niceliu emerged, who was often compared to the brilliant strategist Zhuge Liang in China. Niceliu played a crucial role in assisting Louis XIII, governing the country with intricate skills and significantly strengthening France's national power. What about Louis XIV? Unfortunately, he fell into a river, contracted pneumonia in 1643, and died at the age of 40. His trusted advisor, Cardinal Niceliu, had also passed away the year before. This left young Louis XIV, who was only 5 years old at the time. Thankfully, Niceliu had strengthened the nation, and his successor, Cardinal Mazarin, continued his work, leading to France's peak of power. Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, reigned for 72 years, one of the longest reigns in world history, and he even arranged for his grandson to receive support to become the King of Spain. His reign marked France as the true lord of Europe, with French being the language of the European nobility, especially the English upper class. Interestingly, during this same era, China's Emperor Kangxi and Russia's Peter the Great had similar life trajectories to Louis XIV. They all ascended the throne at a young age, Louis XIV at 5, Kangxi at 8, and Peter the Great at 10, and led their nations to prominence through war and governance. Historians often refer to this period as having 3 simultaneous suns in the world. However, the wars that cemented their legacies also left behind financial chaos for their successors. Peter the Great was followed by Catherine the Great, who continued Russia's glory. In China, Kangxi's 4th brother, though intelligent and talented, stepped aside for his younger sibling. Meanwhile, in France, Louis XIV's successor, Louis XV, indulged in a life of luxury and carelessness, leading to the eventual downfall of the French monarchy. Louis XV's successor, Louis XVI, while not as wasteful, lacked leadership skills, and spent his days tinkering with locks, earning the nickname the Locksmith Emperor. He married the extravagant Austrian princess Marie Antoinette, whose lavish lifestyle further strained the already depleted royal treasury. Countless festivals take place and performed every day. Coupled with severe weather that led to poor harvests, France faced economic collapse. In a desperate move, Louis XVI convened the Estates General, a meeting of the three estates, clergy, nobility, and commoners, which had not been organized for 175 years. During this time, there were various classes of bourgeoisie present. However, the focus wasn't on the extent of their businesses, as all of them were commoners. The Estates General was organized with each estate was given one vote. Interestingly, the commoners outnumbered the other classes, which posed a challenge to the nobility and clergy. The purpose of this assembly was to address the financial crisis by increasing taxes. Back then, the clergy and nobility enjoyed privileges exempting them from taxes, which the commoners strongly opposed. However, with just one vote each, they were outnumbered. How did they win with a score of 2-1? This led to resentment among the commoners, who had to bear the burden of the additional taxes imposed. Over 100 years, as Europe witnessed a decline in literature and arts followed by the Enlightenment movement, France saw the emergence of numerous thinkers advocating for ideals like freedom, equality, and democracy. These ideals deeply resonated with the French people, who harbored long-held aspirations for rebellion against the oppressive regime of Louis XVI. If Louis XVI could do something good, then the France populace would endure. But he play every day with his treacherous wife. How sinful! Faced with the choice between doing something positive and enduring oppression, they chose the former. Therefore, during this period, the French Revolution erupted,